It's Hollie's Hotspurs, welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero in the back. Young Min Son, what can go wrong when he's on full?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollie's Hotspurs Live, where this week we have another loss to dissect, and it was a tough one, obviously losing 4 to Liverpool. But with me tonight to dissect it all and more, I am joined at the moment by 2 fabulous guests. So first of all, I want to welcome Jim from Oh So Spurs onto the channel. How are you, Jim?
Great, thanks, Holly. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Trying to get over Spurs at the weekend, as we all are. That's a common theme at the moment. But it's amazing to have you on the channel, Jim. And also joined by Alan from Time Added On. Alan, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, another poor performance, another bad result for Spurs. So we'll get into it. We'll have a bit of a moan and that, and coping, Spurs therapy session again. But hopefully, it's the last bad result of the season. With an asterisk over Man City.
I love that. No, positive vibes, man. We need the positive vibes. Ross may be joining us as well halfway through. Unfortunately, as he's across the pond, his internet's been a bit dodgy at the moment. But if he does join, I will drag him in. But no, we've got a lot to dissect. Before we jump into it, obviously, I'm going to do a bit of housekeeping and say that, again, if you want to go get yourself a Alloy Collectors shirt, you can do so in the description below and use code HH50. I must say, I know Spurs are playing dire at the moment, but it is good fun to try and build one yourself. So make sure, if you're not into Lego, this could be your way into to start it. But let's move on and obviously talk about the game at hand. I'm going to start with you, Jim, first. Obviously, going into this one, was another loss on our back previously. We were kind of thinking, is this the game we could revive ourselves? But what was your kind of thoughts going into the game?
Look, I'm not in this. I've seen that a lot of it on social media have been really, really downbeat. I'm not in that camp right now. And it's not happy, clappy stuff. When I look at every season, I go into, there's 3 games that I desperately want to win, but I also expect nothing from. And those are Arsenal at home, because as a season ticket holder, I want to go to the ground and experience us beating Arsenal. I want to get revenge on Chelsea and beat them at Stamford Bridge. And I just despise Liverpool for other reasons. And I'd love to get a win at Anfield. But those things just rarely happen. Like, we just don't beat Chelsea. Like, even when we were a mid-table club and they were a mid-table club, we went something like 16 years without beating them. It's just one of those clubs that we just, as in a Man City reverse are with us, that we just always really, really struggle against. So, and I saw the fixtures and thought, why have we got those 3 back-to-back? Because I just know when those 3 fixtures come, there's going to be just this complete, just cesspit of negativity. And I think we've hit that point. And I always saw that point as a kind of low point. I'm thinking, we're 5th. We're 5th. It's really not that bad. Ange Postecoglou has more points than Klopp and Arteta did at this stage of their managerial career with their clubs. And we are in absolute misery. So I'm kind of looking at our standards as well as fans. But to be fair, there are things that Ange, I think we discussed it on this episode today, Ange has done in his decision-making, which could have maybe increased our chances of getting something from those games. And I think that's completely fair. He's not completely abject to blame, right? But there is also an element of, we've probably played 3 teams in better form than us, who are better than us in a row, and just lost them. That's kind of where my headspace is at.
I think that's the thing. I think it's a bit of perspective as well. It's frustrating losing these games in the manner we're losing them in. But Alan, are you kind of in the same boat as Jim? Is it almost like, yes, it was frustrating, but there's bigger things to come?
Look, I'm of the mindset that from what I see of Ange, I believe give him what he wants, like in regards to the players to fit his system, he will have success. That's how I'm seeing it. But I think what's going on at Spurs is the fact that how we started the season, now there's been continual losses and back-to-back losses and quite severe. And let's be honest, in some of them, we've not really had a chance. We've been quite poor. That's the reason why why Spurs fans are obviously in uproar. I'm not in uproar in the fact I've seen so many people, Ange out, not good enough, this and the other. I'm not there, but I will be able to sit here and say that I think he has made mistakes that he needs to be held accountable for. Same with players as well. Some of the players just either are showing no enthusiasm, no effort, and hopefully they'll be moved on in the summer. So there's a lot of problems, but what we've seen with the likes of them down the road, it took Arteta 3 or 4 years. Klopp, it took him 2 or 3 seasons. Then he started winning trophies and going from there. Pep didn't do it in the first season at Man City. It then took a second or third season. Alex Ferguson took him a couple of seasons, and then look what happened with him. So it's very rare, unless you're Mourinho and you've got the funds at Chelsea there and then, to be able to just go and hit the flat ground running. A lot of managers need time to build and stamp the way they want to play and with the players and get everything across. So I think it will come, but again, no one's blameless for these performances. We've got to obviously hold people to account as and when they play badly or when they make wrong decisions tactically or lineup wise. But I'm not, as the saying of not throwing baby out of bathwater, I'm not. I think give him the summer. We'll see how he's backed or what he's given to implement himself going forward. But yeah, I'm not there in throwing Ange under the bus just yet. Not at all.
No, I think that's the thing. We'll probably get onto Ange in more detail later on, but I think it's just perspective at the minute. I think we are very impatient as a fan base, and I think that's warranted with the amount of managers we've gone through. But I don't want to go through another one. I want to grit and bear this one just for a bit longer. It's not even been a season yet. But let's go back to the Liverpool game, because obviously, Jim, there was a few changes in the lineup, and that one person being in the lineup was Emerson Royale. Playing at left back, but for me, was a little bit of a surprise. But then thinking of the players that we kind of got fit and ready, was that kind of the route you were going to go down, Jim, with maybe slotting Emerson where Ange decided to slot him?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think you touched on it there, though. It's kind of like, well, what's the alternative? And someone described this to me who wasn't a Spurs fan. I thought it was really, really fair. And I said, look, as an outsider who doesn't even support the Premier League but loves football, where do we sit in your whole kind of mind frame of a club that thinks we should be challenging for the title? And they said, like, what you just don't have is you'll lose Pedro Porro or you'll lose New Doggy, and this was a specific example. But then you've only got Ben Davies or Emerson Royale to throw in there. You just don't have that squad depth that a Man City has, where those kind of injuries, which can completely derail your first team, one loss to that team can really, really see a huge drop-off in the whole performance as a team. I think that goes across a lot of the squad, right? As well, it's not just the debate about Emerson Royale playing left-back. If we lose Basuma, then you're back in with Højbjerg. And even Basuma is more of a kind of streaky form kind of player. The reason James Maddison, we have him, he's a form player as well. The reason he was available for 40, 50 million quid was because a Man City's never going to sign him and build a team around him, because he's a very good footballer, but he's a streaky footballer. And those kind of players are the players that we can afford in that 40, 50 million pound kind of bracket. So I kind of find in these kind of games, it's, when we have injuries, they hit us harder than they would hit a Man City or they would hit a Liverpool or even Arsenal at the moment. They've taken 3 years of sticking with someone and building squad depth around a certain philosophy and system that doesn't get completely derailed through one injury. And even Liverpool had it right. They lost Van Dijk for that. I think it was 2-3 seasons ago. They lost Van Dijk, and the whole season just went through down the pan. And like for the same of us, if we lost Udogie for a season, you're going, wow, I don't know how we're going to come out of this finishing in the top 5, let alone, top 8. It kind of really can derail everything, but we're building towards something positive. And I feel the alternative with Oliver Skip at left wing back or Heung-min Son at left wing back, what more could he do? It was just our left side. Solomon's out, Udogie's out. Who else is out? We've got 6 players, isn't it? Perisic, we lost for the whole season. And there was Solomon. Yeah, I think it's 6 players, left-footed players, are out for the squad for the season. You can't prepare for that. It's just bad luck, and I feel a little bit for Ange there, I must say.
And that's the thing. The trouble is, like you say about obviously the squad depth, it's the difference in levels as well. Because obviously, Alan, with Emerson sticking there, I think it was 2 goals. He stood there ball watching, especially for the first one. As soon as it left gap post foot, I was like, oh, great, this is going in from a header.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, playing him at left back, he's out of position. You would still say, as a defender, you've got to know when to keep an eye on your man and not just be ball watching. So for me, playing on the wrong side doesn't counteract that. That's his mistake. Balls over the top when Salah, you're allowing him, you glance at him and then you leave him for about 3 or 4 seconds. A player of that caliber is literally going to go stand behind you, and the rest is history. But I also think that Vicario maybe could have done better. That's just me being there. I think he could have been a bit stronger, but Emerson Royale losing his man. But that back line for the whole game was just all over the place. I never once saw a straight line when we're trying to catch people off. It seemed like it feels like where we started strong this season, it feels like individuals now more than that. And I understand losing Udogie is a big part of that defence. I get that. But I feel like I think there's more going on as to the reason why it's a bit disjointed. It doesn't seem like it's anywhere near what it was at the start of the season. But ball watching from him twice, people ghosting behind him, that's unforgivable. People then on my channel, I just done the show previous to this, and they were saying about Skip looked really good as a left back. I don't think he's the answer, but I think obviously in the time we saw him, although Liverpool switched off, he had done a better job than what I see Emerson Royale do. But yeah, the squad depth is we're still trying to build, and we're still trying to build a squad, which is going to take time. It ain't going to be done in the first transfer window. We'll see what we do this summer as well in regards to building the squad. But yeah, we've got to bulk that squad up and answers. I know Davies didn't do that well against Arsenal, but I still think he would have done better than what Emerson Royale would have done against Chelsea and also Liverpool at the weekend. I think that was a big mistake by Ange not changing it again. People at my channel have said about putting Van der Ven at left back, but then I think you lose him in the middle. So I wouldn't do that. I think you lose his speed and covering across the back line. So yeah, I mean, square pegs round holes as normal for Spurs, but I think we'll get there in time. I think we will.
I think that's the thing. Like you've both alluded to, it's very difficult for Ange to kind of pick another player to play in that left-sided role when you've got all those players out. I mean, I don't know whether Dragoshin would have done a better job there. Probably not. Again, it's just these players aren't necessarily the standard that we kind of need at the moment. Because obviously that was the first goal, and then the second goal, again, it was almost like the defence were statues. Jim, do you purely think that's because there's been such a mix-up in that back line over the last couple of weeks because of injuries?
Yeah, it's as well that there's just a reality that we've signed centre backs whose strength is not dealing with things in the air. And when we signed Van der Ven, I remember there was all those kind of charts that were going around of strengths and weaknesses of players, and his weakness was aerial ability. And Ange for his system doesn't look for players who are particularly strong in the air. He looks for players who are very good ball players. They're quick, they can manage the high line, they're very technical, so they can play out the back, they can beat their press. That is the most important attributes for an Ange Postecoglou player. But what I think he didn't anticipate was, wait, where is that aerial dominance going to come from? Because I don't have it in Basuma, I don't have it in Højbjerg, I don't have it in Bentancur. Where's it going to come from? And suddenly you start to get flashbacks of Harry Kane in our own box being our biggest defensive aerial capability as well. You think, wait a second, was that happening for a reason? Was he picking up the slack of other players? I kind of actually feel Ange's biggest mistake, and this leads to the defence as well, in that game, if you had to pick one error, was not starting Richarlison. And I think he adds a defensive benefit as much as he does being a natural number 9 over Son in that forward line. I think that was an area he has to hold his hands up and say, you know what, that was the wrong decision. When I changed things definitely improved. But yeah, I think there's an argument to say Dragoshin could have been squeezed in there, but again, it's such kind of picking the bare bones to look for reasons in that lineup. I just think Liverpool were just better than us. They're a better squad than us, playing at home, and we just couldn't deal with it.
No, and I think you're right. And I'm glad that you've mentioned, obviously, Richie not starting, because, Alan, I think for me, we've seen it for recent weeks. Sonny isn't the answer down the middle. He may have been at the start of the season where we're all ticking, but where nobody's really performing at their high level, Sonny just ghosts when he plays through the middle. And I don't think that's his own fault. He's not naturally a player that can play through the middle. So do you agree with Jim? It was maybe a mistake not to start Richie, again, for his aerial threat too?
Yeah, look, I honestly do. I mean, Son in certain games can provide down the middle when there's space and start to move into or like space behind. I think you'll see Son do well. I think we've seen that earlier on in the season, away at Burnley, loads of space. He looked absolutely phenomenal. But in games like this is why I'm such a how I've seen him. I would like us to sign a Santiago Jimenez from Feyenoord. In tight areas, I mean, we keep possession, we build up, and in tight areas when the ball's played to him, he knows where the goal is, back to goal, he can turn the shooter. We haven't had that. We haven't had that all season. Even Richarlison hasn't done that. But I think what Richarlison gives you in a game away against Liverpool, against a top defender like Van Dijk, is he's movement. You saw him catch Van Dijk over the top time and time again, but also the fact that he's got physical attributes that Son doesn't have. So he can tussle, he can get involved, he can hold the ball up, he can bring others into play. And with Son, we did say that. You honestly saw Son play his best football yesterday when he got moved to left-hand side. And you saw him, get at the fullback, take players on, which obviously the people weren't doing beforehand, Kulusevski or Johnson as much. So I think for the rest of the season, maybe that's what you need to do. Sort out the right between Kulu and Johnson. Definitely have Son left and put Richarlison up front. Is Richarlison the answer moving forward to push Spurs on to winning a title? No, I don't think so. But I think he offers more as a front man than I think Son does against bigger teams or teams that are more physical. And I think the teams we're coming up against all have physicality in their defence. Like they're known as a very physical defensive side. And I think Son does sometimes go missing when he's given that physical fight to have, because I don't think he's got that in his game.
And I think as well with Richarlison, he's got a bit about him, hasn't he, Jim? Because obviously it was in the Arsenal game. I know we're backtracking a bit, but for me, he's that player. He came on and gave a bit of fight. At the moment, it doesn't seem that there's many players that will give that fight. And if you're starting Richie up top, he's going to want to go hungry and go score some goals, because obviously he's had a bit of rough time this year. And I think when he came on, he managed to do the business linking up with Johnson.
Yeah, I agree, Hollie. It's like Richie, but and this goes to both your comments really. Is he the person for the long term? No. Is he good enough to be in the squad next season behind someone else slightly better? Yes. I don't think we should be rushing to sell a Richarlison, because the best teams have someone like him in the squad and he's there as a backup or whatever. But yeah, I get the attitude-wise. There's nothing to criticize about Richarlison, really. He's going to come on. He's going to give 100%. He's going to listen to the manager, and he's going to be one of those players in the dressing room you think that's going, listen to the manager, and he's not going to be a part of any toxic camps trying to go against the grain. So from that perspective, I find it strange that he's, not been started a bit more. And it might be injury related, to be fair. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors for Richie. But there is just a sad reality that the most goals this guy's ever scored in a season, in the Premier League season, is 13, right? And Everton weren't always the relegation Everton we're seeing now. He was starting week in, week out for a kind of mid-table side, and that's the best he could muster. Ivan Toney scored 20 in one season, right, playing for Brentford. So there's reality that he's just not the level of the other players that have scored 20 plus goals in a season, which are in the last 3 years. I think it's only Son, Salah, Haaland, Kane, and Toney, actually. I think there's only 5. He's not that caliber of footballer, but it does go to show when you look at the unmentionables, the smelly lot down the road, they're in a title challenge with 2 very average strikers when you look at it. But what they've done is they can expect 10 goals from the left side, 10 goals from the right side, 10 goals through the middle, and 10 goals up front. And when you add it all up, you're going, wait a second, we don't need that talisman to make this work. And I think the same applies to Richarlison. If the squad was complete, if I'm looking at players to get rid of, Richarlison's not on the first page. He's on the second page. I wouldn't be panicking to sell the guy. I think we should be starting him right now. He's got the fight. He's got a great attitude, like you're saying. And I think he was right for that kind of fixture.
And that's the thing. It took us obviously 4 goals to concede, Alan, before Ange decided to make that change. Again, is that an Ange problem, or do you think he was just trying to see whether the team could muster something up after his halftime team talk?
No, I think that's an Ange thing. I mean, like an Ange fault. We've seen this season him make changes at halftime, so it's not like it's something he doesn't do, and he always wants a response. So I think in certain games, 1-0 down, you should maybe making a change will kick you into life, give stuff like that. He didn't do it. And I've seen a couple of times this season where 1-0 defeat, being down 1-0 leads to a 2 or 3 and the game's done and dusted. I think I would have liked to have seen him make a change, because there's quite a few players that weren't performing. I would like to have seen a change or 2 coming off Bissouma, Bentancur, and just give something else in the midfield. I think Sarr, when he came on, the energy levels, throughout the game, the energy levels there would have kept him on. And I really would have put Lo Celso on early enough. Why not put more creativity on that pitch? Because with Maddison being dropped, okay, I don't know if he's trying to make a statement saying that you're not performing, you need to be dropped. Why not Lo Celso? I'm not a Lo Celso fan, but I'm thinking you're quite clearly saying he's not good enough, but then you give him 5 odd minutes at the end. I would rather see 5 minutes at the end go to a Mikey Moore or a youngster coming on the bench, get some minutes. It feels like it's a bit not making sense from how we're starting the game to the subs being made to the end product. I mean, Brian Hill getting 5 minutes on at the end against Chelsea as well. You know, it makes I'm questioning what's going on. I would like to see changes made earlier to try and combat being exposed or like having a team come at us and us not being able to do anything about it. And then towards the end, if we're still losing or you want somebody to make a change, why not give a youngster 5 minutes? We seem to be the only team with a very good young squad now, and the under 21s winning and stuff like that. We seem to be the team with the best youth set up at the moment, but not implementing youth where we get a chance. Whereas Liverpool have done it, Newcastle have done it, Man City have done it, and I'm thinking to myself, even Arsenal at times have done it, and I'm thinking to myself, why are Spurs not doing that? I think Ange needs to accept accountability for the wrong decisions of when to make subs and the wrong subs as well. But yeah, there are players that just aren't good enough, and you would hope that you'd see fight and desire from some of them, but it's just not there.
No, and I think that's the really frustrating thing, because it has been there and I'm not really too sure what's happened for it to all change. I think the biggest thing for me is when you mentioned obviously about Gio, because Jim, for me, you naturally would think slip Maddison out, put Gio in for a bit of creativity, but it's not really happening like that, is it?
No, it's not. And I feel we're all screaming out for it because Gio's come on and done a decent job when he's come on every time. And he's definitely been more impactful than Maddison has. There's some crazy stat going around, like he created more in 5 minutes, didn't he, than Maddison created across the rest of the game. But there's a reality that Andrew's mentioned this in the press conference before, that he doesn't care where we finish in the league. And that this season, right? And there's a reason behind that. He's building a squad to challenge for a title, and whatever sacrifices he's making now that he thinks are going to better benefit us in the long term will, and congratulations on 3K, Hollie.
Thank you.
Is what he's going to do. And I think that's an example of where he's sitting at the sales floor going, if the rumors are true, this guy doesn't want to be here next year. He wants to leave. He's going to be sold or sent out on loan in a few months' time. I'm better playing Maddison through poor form and trying to get him into a better position next year, because he will be here next year. Because this season's a write-off, I think, for Ange. He's thinking, unless I really mess up against Burnley and Sheffield United at the end, is it? Anyway, as long as I don't mess up those two games, 5th is there for me. The rest of the games are just about preparing us for next season now and figuring out who I want in the squad and who not. And Lo Celso's not going to be here. So I think as fans, we're just like, no, I'm paying money to go watch this game. I'm investing my time, 2 hours, to go sit at home and watch this, or wherever I am watching this. I want to win this game at all costs. But he's going, no, my job is to make sure that in 2 or 3 years' time, we are pushing for a title and we win an FA Cup or something. So he's got a different view to us as fans, and he's not a Tottenham fan. Like, most managers aren't fans of the clubs they manage. He's there looking at it from a very abject bird's eye view, whereas we look at it from a fan's view. And I think we find that very frustrating this season, because he's really used this time to like experiment, try out the squad members, try see what works, try what doesn't. And for us fans, it's so infuriating. Because we're like, if we just did that, though, we'd have more chance of winning the game. But he's going, yeah, but they're not going to be here next year. So why would I do that?
No, I totally get that. And I think like lots of people are saying in the chat that the same sort of thing in terms of there is no point if you're playing one. But one person that stands out for me, and John's kind of put it here in the chat, is the fact that Brian Hill, if that's the same, if Andrew's using that same logic with Gio, why on earth is he doing it with Brian Hill? I'm going to give that one to you, Alan. Sorry, I was in my little world then. You're on mute, my friend.
I'm to do my best impression of Elmo. You know that gif? Like, I don't know. Yeah, Brian Hill getting minutes at the end when we know he's not going to be at Spurs next season. Same with, I think Gio's gone as well, to be fair. And look, if it is fair enough, I think he's not done enough over his like time at Spurs to show he should be there. But this is what I'm saying. It doesn't kind of match what we're trying to do as a club. I mean, you're trying to play a game, like you're showing what you want, and then players that aren't going to do that, you're going to get them at the end of the season. But players are playing or getting minutes that aren't going to be here next season. There's no way Lo Celso and Brian Hill are going to be, proper predominant players moving forward for this club or under Ange. So this is what I'm saying. It's not making sense to me as to what we're doing or the right changes at the right time, subs. This is why I'm saying I would like to see youth in these aspects getting these 5 or 6 minutes, because we've been told that Ange, well, I've been told on my channel numerous times that Ange gives youth a chance. It's good getting all these young players coming into us like Bergvall, Vuskovic, and then having the youngsters come through, Dorrington, Michael Santiago, all these kind of players. And then, you got a clear, step up to the first team. But none of them have actually got a chance in the first team at the moment. Let's be honest. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, we're going to get all these youngsters in. We're going to have this great setup. But if youngsters sitting there like from the youth setup and going, well, hold on, I'm not given a chance to even get into this team. You then start seeing these quality or this youth setup that you've got going so well at the moment going, well, I might have to go elsewhere. And then, people then saying, but we're only going down the route of like Man City in regards to building up their value so we make a profit. But I'd rather give some of these players the chance to prove themselves rather than have to rely on a Brian Hill or a Skip or a Højbjerg. If we're going forward as a club and we're building, a squad and then having the backup of youth, that's what I'd rather do than have same players who haven't proved themselves over 3 or 4 years at Spurs. I would rather see youth come in and get minutes, whereas these players are, I'll be honest, wasting our time as fans. Let's be honest.
And you make a valid point, because obviously there has been one name that's been on the team list, and that is obviously Mikey Moore, Jim. And for, like Alan's saying, and like we've all kind of said, if we're not going to give those players that we know that are going off a chance, why don't we play Mikey Moore? Do you think that's maybe something that's coming into Ange's mindset because he's now experienced being on the bench, that sort of thing, that he's getting to know what it's like to be in this Tottenham first team?
Yeah, it's by the way, it's just a good name for a footballer, Mickey Moore or Mikey Moore, whatever it is. It's just a brilliant name. But it's particularly when the left side is such a weakness, and you think you've got a player who's tearing it up in the academy in that role, and there's the same thing with Jamie Donnelly, right? And you think, oh, we've got a 10 there in the waiting. Like, what is taking us so long to put these guys in the team? I think what compounds that issue and makes it more frustrating is if for whether it's realistic or not, we all want Tottenham to win the league, right? That is our dream. That's our goal. I sit up at night sometimes, and just as sad as it is, I imagine how I'm going to get to the pitch on time when we win the league, because I'm in one of the upper tiers, how I'm going to get down onto the pitch before the stewards stop me. And to get there, though, for Spurs, everything has to line up perfectly. The youth academy is key, because we can't do what Man City do and go and buy 16 world-class players and subsidise it with a Phil Foden, just one. We have to do more kind of in line with what someone like Liverpool does, which is Trent Alexander-Arnold in the open markets come from their academy would be 150 million quid in his prime, right? That's come from their youth academy. Without that kind of player, they wouldn't have been able to afford a player in that position to take them to that level. And they've had others. They've got Harvey Elliott and many others. And I think Klopp is the prime example of someone they don't have the money to compete with Man City. But if you leverage the academy, you leverage the transfer market properly, and you scout players very carefully, and you have the right tactics, you get those 3 things in the right motion at the same time, you can compete with the clubs who have more resources than you. But we're just not doing that. And I have to agree with Alan there. It's just like, why bring on Brian Hill? Why even if Mickey Moore has a stinker, no one's going to care. And we're still going to lose that game. So just give someone some minutes and let's just try these people out. I think, I'm very much Angian, right? But my one major criticism it has to probably be not criticism, my disappointment, my deflation has been the lack of using youth. Because I thought when we lost Conte, this person would come in and finally start leveraging that academy. And we've got a really good academy in a very congested market, and he's just not leveraging it. And that is one negative I have to say. Sorry, Ange. I love you, but sorry.
No, I think that's a good point to make. And I don't know whether, now we've said all this, maybe in Burnley we'll see him grace the pitch. But I don't know whether it's because, I know we've said that we'll potentially get 5th if we carry on the way we're kind of doing, pick up the points against Burnley, pick up the points against Sheffield. Maybe he's thinking next season when we've got European football, that's the time to let these players shine. I mean, it will be a win-win if that does happen, because we want to give them a bit of chance. But again, I'm with you guys. I don't know why he doesn't just bloody play them now. It's so infuriating when his name is on the team sheet and he's just not getting the chances. And Jim, I'm glad that you mentioned obviously Harvey Elliott. As much as it pains me to say, in that game, unfortunately, Alan, Harvey Elliott scored a great goal. And that kind of goes back to what Jim said in terms of giving your youth that time to go and express themselves, because he is, as much as I hate it, a really good player.
Yeah, I mean, it was a stunning goal. And it just goes to show if only our wingers decided, or like not even wingers, but midfielders decided want to cut in and have a shot. This so many times I've seen Spurs this season, we just don't take the shot when we really should. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this is what can happen. You can hit a wonder goal, get deflection, anything can happen. But it goes to like we've discussed here with youth. Give youth a chance and they can surprise you. Newcastle, Miley's been doing it this season. Obviously, he was doing it there. Oscar Bob for Man City. You've got Bradley for Liverpool before the injury. All these youngsters that are given chances at these other clubs. And you're thinking to yourself, Mikey Moore being sitting there, I'd rather an academy prospect or somebody like that stay with the academy if you're just going to sit and waste them on the bench and not give them game time or not try and, get more out of them. But yeah, it was a fantastic goal. There's nothing Vicario could do. It was just well hit. But this is what you can do, Tottenham Hotspur, if you take shots from outside, occasionally go in, or you can then make something happen from it. And when you play youth and show faith in youth and give them a chance, it's what can happen. You can find a gem, a diamond amongst the rough, or whatever the saying is. But we haven't done that for some time. And with the setup we've got at the moment, you'd think we would be itching to put more people through this thing to find if these players who are smashing it for the under-21s can actually do it in the Premier League. But as of right now, I think the one who's got 5 minutes is there was a midfielder got 5 minutes at the end of one game. I can't remember whether it was
Alfie.
No, this season I can't even remember the player who it was. I don't think it was Mikey Moore. I think it was somebody else. I think somebody got 5 minutes. I can't even remember who it was. That's
Santiago. I can't remember. Yeah.
It's minutes. But what I'm saying is we should be sitting here going, hold on, Mikey Moore looks like a prospect and he's getting minutes and he's showing that he can do it in the league. Or, Santiago is showing that he can do it. Dorrington in defence looking like a rock when he gets his minutes or times. Donnelly, there you go. Spurs fan, thank you very much. Donnelly, got 5 minutes. I was trying to remember the name of the top head, but we should be sitting here going, hold on. Our youngsters, they're showing that they can do it in the league as well. It looks good for Spurs' future going forward. But at the moment, all I've got to go on is a youth player getting a chance and 5 minutes, and I forgot who it was. That's not good enough, especially when we've got the youth setup we have now. Because before this season, or before it happened, it was quite poor. Let's be honest. It was an awful setup. We didn't have the players, weren't doing much. But now we do. This is where you need to start going, okay, we're going to bring them through. Because worst comes to worst, they get game time and it just elevates their value from playing under 21 to Premier League. So you make a profit anyway. But let's just say you plop a Donnelly in there or a Dorrington and you go, hold on. Not only can they do it there, they're literally, you can see that they have potential to be the next big thing at Spurs. We've done it through years at Spurs and had quality youngsters come through, Ledley King being one, Harry Kane being another. So if we can do it, and we used to do it as a club, but for some reason right now, it's just not the same. And I'm thinking to myself, why? I want to see more. It doesn't mean that we have to go and give 11 youngsters the full game against Man City. It doesn't mean we have to do that. But the odd game here or there, Burnley and Sheffield United, I'd rather see a Donnelly or a Dorrington or a Mikey Moore for 20, 30 minutes of a game than see Brian Hill come on and a Lo Celso, who are not going to clearly be here. I'd rather see these type of players give a chance.
But Alan is like a bit of it though. Like, I'm sorry, Hollie, if I'm interrupting the flow here, but I'm passionate about this topic because I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Is a part of it though, like, when we used to play, my first game for Spurs was when we were very, very mid-table. We were playing Southend or something, and I went to the game with my uncle, and he said, "Look at that, Jim. Look at that team sheet on the back." And there was about 20 academy players on there, so it's a load of academy. And he was like, that's why we're, because we were just rubbish. So that was something to like shout about as like a positive. But as we've grown as a football club, like the biggest clubs just don't have, like they just can afford not to leverage the academy, and they find a quicker route to success is to buy these people. Even when I look at like Phil Foden, I'm like, in real life, that guy has come from nothing and worked his way into what he has become. So this analogy, just to set that context first. But in footballing world, that guy has gone to the world's best school in the world's best academy with the world's best coaches and had the world's best everything to set one individual, because they need him for a homegrown reason, up for success around all the world's best players. Like he has been silver spooned to the he's been diamond spooned in the academy equivalent up, and he earned that stage to get to that, right? Because he came from nothing, he really earned that. But that's just to get one player into that Man City team. If I'm at Liverpool, they've got Liverpool are probably the best example, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I'm only expecting 1 or 2 in our squad, but where are those 1 or 2?
I'm not expecting a huge we've got to now put 5 or 6 players into thing, but these players, either we're not giving them the credit they deserve, because Ange is giving Mikey Moore on the bench, he's put Donnelly on the bench, Dorrington's been on the bench, so they've got to put them on the bench. It's either to make up numbers, and then you're obviously not giving them the chance to, or you're never really going to give them a chance, and it's maybe a bit being disingenuous. Or your case, you're going, you're there if I need you because you've got ability. But then, like saying, if they're there because they've got ability and you may need them, then why in the last 5 minutes are you putting a Brian Hill on who isn't going to be with us next season? Why not give that to I'm not saying obviously because it's not like for like position, but Donnelly or a Mike or something like that. This is what I'm saying. It's only in those aspects. I'm not asking for a huge transformation like in having all 11 players be youngsters or through the academy, but in these aspects of where you go, okay, the game's gone. Why did anyone really go, we're sitting there against Chelsea with 5 minutes to go, Brian Hill's the answer? Did anyone really go, Brian Hill's the answer? No, this is what I'm saying. So, I want to see maybe against Burnley and Sheffield United, maybe these youngsters who are on the bench, whether it be Mikey Moore, Donnelly, Dorrington, Santiago, whoever it may be, it's up there. Or, I want to see if we're going to give 5 minutes towards the end of the game, give it to a young, just see what they can do. Just see if they can do anything in the game, just to make them stand out. And then Spurs fans go, hold on, this youth setup isn't just a flash in the pan at underage. They can actually progress into the first team as well. Yeah.
I think my only hoping is if we get European, we're hopefully definitely going to get European football some degree next season, that's the time he's going to start using these youth players. Because you're right, we've got to see what they can do on the big stage, to say the least. But I kind of want to bring it back to obviously the Liverpool game and talk about obviously the last goal we kind of scored when we decided that we were actually going to wake up. Because for once, Jim, I actually saw a bit of combination play that's been missing for weeks on end. And I'm hoping that that's going to sustain going through to obviously the Burnley game. Yeah,
it's we've got to bear in mind we are playing a good defensive team with Liverpool. They don't go and concede 3 or 4 goals in a normal game. So to score 2 against them is, in a sense, I feel like as a forward line, we did meet our expectations in a game. It's again more defensive issues that really let us down. And I'm sure people will say, yeah, but that was half-baked Liverpool because they'd switched off then. That wasn't the real Liverpool. And that's fair enough because there's definitely some truth to that. I like, there is a reality that our holy hey Scarfy. There is a reality that the holy trinity of Son, Johnson, and Werner is just not it. And then when you're bringing on the likes of Richarlison, sure, it improves things. But what I'm saying is there's not a cohesive front 3 there. But they're not helped by the fact that there's not a good 6 in the team that's going to be able to play the ball out from the back towards those players. But there are definitely some green shoots, right? There's a reason why Spurs are sat in 5th and not in 12th. And there's a reason why teams like West Ham are behind us, is our expectations really are quite high as what we deem rubbish, what we deem good. And that's good. I think we should maintain that, because if we let that slip as a fan base, you'll slip into mediocrity. You've got to challenge for those things. But we're not that bad going forward. I would expect to go into Burnley scoring 2, maximum of 3 goals and conceding 1 goal and winning that game. I'd expect to go to City and lose, but I'd expect to score a goal there. And I expect to then finish the season with another win against Sheffield United by 2 goals. And think we came 5th with a okay front 3, some really good centre backs, no depth on our wing backs. We really need a 6. Okay, that we know where at least if Spurs, you know where the problems are. I think it's worse when you go into a team and go, I don't know how we're going to fix this. And I think there's some people who are saying at the moment, maybe it's the system, maybe it's not the players, but I do think it's too early to say if that's the case or not. But yeah, I think, in answer to your actual question before going on my massive tangent, yes, there's massive green shoots. The front 3 are capable of scoring 2 goals in a game, but I wouldn't expect to go trounce a team by 3 or 4.
No, I think the only good thing from the Liverpool game is that we didn't concede from a set piece, because I was going to lose my brain if that happened again. But before we move on, obviously, to previewing Burnley, I want to come to you, Alan, about obviously the penalty call right at the very end. Now, how do you kind of see it? Do you think it was a penalty, or do you think it's just more of a coming together?
I don't think, for me, it wasn't a coming together or a penalty. So the ball's come in, and as a defender, I mean, if I'm defending, I used to play right back. So let's just, I'm sure, so I wouldn't have been able to get my leg up the high anyway. But if the ball's coming over and I can swing a foot it, I'm expected, like, you can't not defend that. You have to get something on it. So if you get, the fact is that he's actually got the ball. He's like, scissor kicked it away. He's got the ball. And what's happened to Brendan Johnson after the fact is pretty much like, obviously, he's got caught, but he's then hit the post, which has done most of the damage. As soon as I saw that, like, as soon as you're watching it in real time, you're like, penalty, because you think high foot and that. There was no intent to actually kick the player. He was clearing the ball. It happened after the fact. I can't sit here and honestly say, if it had happened the other way and it was a defender that cleared it, say Van der Ven that cleared it to the post, and it, the same thing happened to a Salah, I would be annoyed if it was given against Spurs as a penalty. I just don't see it as a penalty. I think it was obviously more wishful thinking, trying to get back into the game, wanting the penalty. But for me, it wasn't a penalty. I think it was a great piece of defending. There was no intent, not a penalty for me.
I think the thing is, because obviously the first half of the season where we played Liverpool at home, Jim, the whole VAR controversy that happened in that game, obviously a lot of fans were thinking, it's just VAR, them lot, because we did one over at them at our gaff, they're doing it at theirs. Like, what did you kind of say? Were you on the same fence as Alan?
Yeah, I kind of feel there's a bit of fan paranoia just naturally going on there. But I would say over the course of the season, I would say, tinfoil hat off a second, we have probably had this culture around the club whereby players like Vicario have had a stigma against them that he should be stronger. A term starts, and Romero, he's a loose cannon. So you start to get these reputations of certain players that have, as a result, resulted in us probably getting a few more decisions against us in an ideal world if there was complete subjectivity in football. And I kind of put it a bit like, if you've all got siblings, the eldest gets treated different to the youngest. And I kind of feel there's that in football clubs as well, where it's not conscious bias, but there is some subconscious bias from referees, depending on where clubs are and what they're fighting for, what their reputation is and what players' reputation is. And I kind of feel Ange has been a victim to that, because he's come in and tried to take a moral high ground. And he said, I'm not going to complain about anything. I'm just going to take it on the chin, roll with the punches and get on with it, because that's the guy I am. But in reality, that's kind of gone against him a little bit, whereas someone like Jurgen Klopp would have thrown a hissy fit, and then as a result, maybe things would have gone unfairly their way afterwards. I feel that's where we've maybe rolled over and taken a few punches. And even in that game, I thought 2 or 3 decisions, smaller ones, 50-50s, didn't go our way. And you just look back into the other fixtures, Arsenal and Chelsea, and you could easily pick 1 or 2. I'm sorry, if jumping back to that Arsenal one, and I can't let it go, when Ben White's taken off Vicario's gloves, as a prime example with this kind of whole concept, when it happens to us, it's, he's just messing around, it's nothing big. If we'd done that to another player, you could guarantee along to talk to someone, he's taken off his gloves. What did you expect it to happen? Of course it's a foul. You can't do that. I just feel there's that little bit of stigma we live in as Spurs with the Spursy tag.
No, I'm with you. I totally get that. And going back to that Arsenal fixture, I was so annoyed that only Richie was the one that was so fired up for a North London derby. Again, obviously, I don't condone what Ben White did, but that's what I want to kind of see in a North London derby, as bad as it sounds. I want to see that little bit of winding each other up. We never really got that in that game. But anyway, Liverpool's done. It's dusted. We move on. And obviously, next up is Burnley. So, Alan, obviously, this game's at home. So how do you see this one going down?
So, look, we can't lose to Burnley at home. Look, Burnley have to come out and they have to fight, because if they don't win, they go down. So they have to come with everything. That they can't be, we'll look to get a point and then get a result later on down the line. It's basically for them go big, go home. So they're going to come at us. They're always already playing expansive, open type of football as well under Company. So for me, we should be, no disrespect to Burnley, we should be smashing these. It doesn't matter how bad we've been playing. We should be, with the caliber of players we've got in behind. Son, I don't rate Brendan Johnson. I don't think he's in product. I think, but what he brings to this team, the speed in behind, like the Panthers play you saw for the second game, the overlapping of the wing and the ball in down the channel. I think this Burnley team, how open they are, how high up they all play, I think if they do come at us and try and get and push forward, I think this is a game that we can expose them and run out comfortable winners. If we lose this game, if it becomes 5 losses in a row, it's going to get very toxic in that stadium very quickly. Again, I'm still not Angel. I think he needs another transfer window. I think you need to then see how he does, how he's with the players and building his picture and how he's going to have a team at the end or a squad. So for me, he still gets time, but I think fans will react very quickly in the stadium, and obviously you'll hear booing and all that. But again, I think he's a victim of his own success. You made a good point of it backstage before we came out. Sorry to take your point. This is Hollie's point, not mine. We had to start as bad as we are now and finished how we started. If we were finishing how we started the season, everyone would be like, fantastic, he's looking forward to next season. Because it's the other way around, obviously it's doom and gloom. I think you can ask questions of the manager, you can ask questions of the players and how we're doing things at the moment. But I've just got this feeling that if we get things right in the summer, and with Spurs, how we do business signings, if is the biggest word ever at Spurs. If we get things right, this manager will have success. I understand people getting annoyed because of how we're conceding similar goals. I don't think that's going to happen against Burnley. Although they've got to come at us and try and win, I think that they're just not at the level and they'll get easily exposed. But again, I've ate my own words once or twice this season, so I'm just not going to carry on. I'm just going to be quiet and sit back and just not manifest anything. So yeah, it's over to you guys.
Good shout, good shout. But no, you're right in terms of obviously, like I said, and like you said, if this was the other way around, I don't think there'd be a massive kind of not overreaction, but meltdown as that you see. Obviously, Twitter's a toxic place anyway. But when you see that fans are saying they want him gone, then I'm thinking, mate, we're not even at the end of the season yet. We've got more things to come. But to bring it back to Burnley, because obviously, as we all know, and Jim, you've alluded to it, there's kind of a bit of a mismatch going on with the team at the moment. So if you were Ange, who would you kind of play in your midfield? Because I don't think Ange really knows what his best midfield is. But what do you think it would be the best to combat Burnley?
Yeah, it's a good question. And my son's just coming in to say goodnight to me, wearing his Tottenham kit, by the way. So he's fully kitted out, fully coised. But night, Jack. Yeah, he's indoctrinated. So the midfield, it's a really tough one because I feel like with Basuma and Højbjerg, I think Basuma's the better option. I still do, and I think Højbjerg, for all his mental attributes and his attitude, he's just not right. He's just not a good technical footballer at all. I'm sorry, Højbjerg. But when you're listening to this, you need to, I'm sorry, go find another club. But you're just not right for the system. But thank you for all your efforts. And then you look at the other midfielders and you go, it's so tough. When you're looking at like Maddison and Lo Celso, I'm thinking my heart says go with Lo Celso because that's going to get us through the game more likely with 3 points. But my head's saying this guy's not going to be here next year, so go with Maddison. But I do want to drop Maddison out of principle now. I think he needs to be dropped. So I'm going to go for Maddison. I'm going to go for Basuma. But then on the other side, it's so tough because Sarr is like the one midfielder we have and we think, like his Bentancur, everyone's arguing about the injuries and stuff. I kind of feel like Sarr is so good. Like his talent, his ceiling level is so high. But he weirdly doesn't quite fit any role in the team. So you're going like, oh my God, we got this insanely good young player who doesn't quite fit a position. He's kind of half and half. But yeah, screw it. I'm going to say start Sarr as well. just for it. Yeah, I just think it's at the point we don't have a perfect midfield combination. I hope Bentancur comes back after pre-season what he was before, but I think that's to be sorted out in pre-season. He's clearly not going to play his way into that this season now, based on his performances over the last 5 or 6 games.
No, agreed. And I think that's the thing. I think even us as fans, sometimes we don't really know what our best midfield is because it's been so up and down in terms of their performance, and then injuries have struck them. It's just so difficult. And it's a headache that I don't like to have when I think about it, let alone Ange. But I want to bring up because there's one midfielder that's actually done very well this kind of week, and that is Harry Winks for Leicester. So I'm going to make sure that I mention his name because obviously he was my one true love when he played for Spurs. But no, it's going back to Burnley, I think it's a must win. We can't lose. I'm hoping I don't jinx it like I did for Chelsea, because I don't want to do that again. But it will be an interesting game and one that we have to win. But before we go, obviously there is another massive fixture happening on the Sunday, and that is the Women's FA Cup final. And it's a historic day for both clubs, not just for Spurs. I think it's the first time Man United have been in an FA Cup final as well. So, Alan, how amazing would it be if Spurs took home a trophy, regardless if it's men's or women's? It's a trophy for Tottenham.
But for me, I want to see the women win, because the reason why I want to see the women win most is because it's a case of, look what they've done. Now, Tottenham has always been a footballing club of winning cups and everything like that. This is the women's team have gone on to win a trophy. And let's be honest, a couple of years ago, this women's team was struggling and stuff like that. And they've got to a cup final and won a cup final before the men's team have. Hopefully, that will be a case of, hold on, maybe we need to up our game on the men's side to win a trophy. So I don't care, how they win. We've seen Spurs with the men's team go to finals and just fly and lose. I want this women's team to get a win by any means necessary. Shithousery to the max, fine. Waste time, do whatever you want, get an early goal, sit back, or just eat up the clock and then just get 1-0 win. Or even go out there and smash them, whichever you do. Just, I hope they win. I hope it's a catalyst where they go, wow, the women's, now let's have the men emulate what the women have done. I hope it's that make the owners or people behind the scenes go, well, hold on, we now need to match what they're doing, because, they've got a trophy and our men's team, which have been a cup team before, haven't done for some time. So, best of luck to them. I hope they smash it, and I hope they bring some silverware to Spurs, because the men's team hasn't done that for some time.
Agreed. And I think that's the thing. I think we're kind of at a place, I know we were talking about the academy, we've talked about Ange, Robert Wilhelm as well, that's the coach for the women's teams, Jim. He kind of entered this philosophy as well of attacking football, which is the Tottenham way. And like John has said in the chat, obviously Spurs women have had a lot of struggle over the year, obviously nearly being relegated. They brought in Beth England. They've managed to go on strides from then on in. And now we're seeing them in a cup final. What was your kind of take going into the final?
Yeah, it's obviously last season league-wise was really disappointing. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, is this just a sinking ship, or are we going to be able to turn it around? And this season's been kind of got us back on par to where we were kind of in 2021, 2022. I think we came sixth. Right, I think then, and we're sixth right now. So I think it's definitely it's been like more of a let's really stabilize as a team. But what feels different this time is it feels like there's big momentum behind us now, and it's like that cup win would make such a difference, because us and Man United are they're 6 points ahead, but we're one place behind them in the table, I believe, at the moment. So this is kind of like, I would much rather Spurs finish sixth in the men's team and won a trophy. So for all accounts, I just want to see us win trophies. And if the women's team can win a trophy this year, I think that can spark them on to how do they move that league position from fifth or sixth that they've been in the kind of stuck in the last number of years, and start challenging that first, second, third spot. So they can kind of get that out of the system as we're actually winners here. We're not completely tied to maybe the men's side of the football, which is where we have a place in the league. This is an opportunity for us to actually be a very dominant team. Just because it says Man United above us in the table, this is a different dynasty here. We can be a bigger club than them. We can be a better club than them. We can beat them. We can win trophies against these people. So I think it's massive, because women's football is just exploding. It's getting the publicity that it needs, and it's growing like crazy. And this win would just be the perfect moment, I think, to just rocket Spurs from that 5th, 6th place up to that top 3 place in the Premier League next season. So it's a huge game for the ladies. So yeah,
it's going to be amazing. Like I say, hopefully we manage to do it. I'll be there with my dad, so that'll be quite a nice thing for us. Hopefully I don't jinx it on the Saturday with Spurs pen and jinx it on the Sunday. But, I'm not going to say anything. But you know what? It's been amazing tonight to obviously dissect that loss against Liverpool, as bad as that sounds. I always say it's good therapy sometimes when we lose. To look ahead to Burnley and obviously look ahead to the FA Cup on the weekend. We'll go around the table and say our goodbyes. So first of all, I'll start with Jim. Jim, thank you again so much for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Where can everybody find you?
On Twitter, X, just Oh So Spurs. You can find me on there, or on YouTube. Yeah, just search Oh So Spurs as well. And we've got a channel on there. And Hollie's been on an episode recently. She's coming on again soon. So Yeah.
Lovely stuff. No, thank you, Jim. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to have you. And
Thank you,
also,
Hollie.
Alan, as well, thank you again, my friend, for joining us. Like I say, it's always great to have you on to dissect things. Where can everybody find you?
No worries. Thanks for having me on. I think I'm back next week as well after the City game.
I think so. I need to get my little notepad out because, I'm awful at organising things.
I thought I was on the Man City one, and you said, do you want to come on Liverpool one as well? And I said, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so you can catch me next week on there. But also, you can find me on YouTube. Time Added On is my channel, predominantly Spurs. In the summer, I am going into the whole transfer thing for all Premier League, seeing how we compare against other teams. But as it stands right now, mostly Spurs content on the daily. Any big news, obviously looking forward to the weekend with the game against Burnley. Always a bit of a, sometimes it can be nice and cool shows. Sometimes it can get a bit, back and forth because people see things differently. But I welcome all different thought types onto my channel to have a debate about any subject. But yeah, just where you can find me. Time Added On. Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'll be back next week.
Lovely stuff. And like I say, thank you to everybody that's watching this live, is going to go back, rewatch it. And thank you to everybody that has also subscribed to the channel, because we did manage to hit the 3K, which has been something that I've been wanting to hit for a little while. So thank you to everybody that has done so. Like I say, we'll be back again next week for Hollie's Hotspurs. And obviously this Wednesday, I can't forget, for Hotspur Huddle, where Wes will be getting the tactical board out once again. But until next time, come on, you Spurs.